Mulrooney, so I'm going to be your host today. Just a couple of housekeeping items here. First, this session will be available on demand through the CPAL website after the conference. So we'll send out an email to all registrants with the recording and anything else relevant. Second, there is a spot for questions on the right-hand tab under the questions tab. You've all entered this session muted, so please enter your questions there and I'll address them at the conclusion. We can volley back with Scott and Larry. And finally, this is a showdown. We are having a battle between PR versus marketing. So we have a poll for this session. Please vote as the session continues to see which one you think is more effective, PR versus marketing.
So right up here, this corner, right here.
Not going to happen. Not going to happen. Folks, while we're waiting for the slides, first of all, thank you, Sheila, for that great introduction. In just a moment, we'll have the slides up, but in the meantime, we'll just go ahead and start our little bout, if you will. The fact is, for any any fans out there of prize fighting, the fact is that this is the boom on Zoom. When we talk about PR versus marketing, what we're talking about is the difference between approaches and the ways in which you attack the market. Marketing is obviously the more direct, it's obviously the more impactful, and clearly the more able to develop return on investment for your marketing efforts. The key here is to always remember that what we're talking about is making things and making results happen. PR is not direct to the target audience, and very simply is when we talk about, well, what is direct to target audience? Well, with marketing, what we're able to do is actually go through and bring you the content that is focused on your target audience. So how do you define your target audience? Well, whether it's by job function or the management level or the industry or the location, the different technology they use, the revenue, the size of the company, there are so many different ways in which we can target. And contrary to my opponent over here, the only fake news is PR news. So, let's get it going. Scott, for you, I think you've got to take a little bit of a look at what does PR bring to the table?
Well, I mean, of course, you can reach the specific audience you want to reach if you're willing to pay for it, right? Can you hear me? Is my microphone not working? Sheila hears me. Larry,
Scott, you're okay for me. Everything's okay on my end.
Just making sure. Thank you. It seems like a financial transaction in terms of how you do your marketing. What kind of mind share, though, do you think you're going to garner if you've bought and paid for an audience? Now, today's audiences are sophisticated, which means they're a bit jaded, right? I'm jaded. I know, I'm guessing everybody who's attending here is probably has the same feeling. I'll give you an example. We know the difference between a sponsored tweet and a genuine, authentic back and forth between a customer and a brand on that platform, Twitter. As just an example. A paid social campaign is just marketing. A social media campaign that employs organic growth where you've really built your audience and through genuine engagement and developing a real conversation around the industry. That's public relations. A sponsored tweet is something I scroll right past 9 out of 10 times. But a real dialogue between a customer and a brand is something I might, half the time at least, take a closer look at. If it's done right, I might even be influenced by it. The same principles apply to traditional media. You can take out a full-page ad in the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal and or any other publication. Maybe it's something more sliced toward you, like Recruiter Daily, their blog. But it's more of a branding exercise. I mean, yes, you see the brand. That has value. I'm not going to deny that. I'm absolutely not. I mean, that is important too. It's part of your communications program. But compare that to having your CEO quoted in the same publications, whichever they might be. And not only are more people getting your message there, since their comments in those articles would ideally be their message in action, but you're also building a credibility for your brand that would otherwise not be possible. I mean, there's no question in my mind that you'd rather be quoted in an article in a major publication than on a quarter page ad. But I'm partial, of course. I know where Larry can go with this if we find him again, because you don't necessarily, when it comes to PR, control the cadence of your audience. That's what's tricky. That's where the partnership comes in. Too early to be conciliatory. We need to go head to head and just battle it out right now. But in marketing, you pay for the distribution. You know exactly when it's going to air or publish or post. I get that because you've paid for it. But similarly, you're not getting the same level of attention to it. And before I, concede that point of cadence to Larry, I also want to emphasize not only can PR be more cost efficient than a direct buy oftentimes, but, sometimes quality is more important than quantity.
So, we talked about PR is not direct to the audience. Hopefully all of you got to hear that. I know I wasn't able to hear Scott, which was truly the best part of this entire presentation. But when we're talking about all this, we're talking about focusing our target audiences in order to deliver the best possible results. When you're talking about PR, it's scattershot. Throw it all across and hope that something sticks. And very simply is with marketing, we can get down right to the exact members of the target audience that you're looking for. If you're looking for a manager and director at a Fortune 500 financial services company and you want all of their direct reports, there's a really good chance that marketing can bring that to you so that we're able to really create transactions and return on investment from speaking directly to the target audience. Scott, I'll let you kind of address that. How do you guys get anything for that scattershot approach of yours?
Well, did we just see the headlines? I mean, I think my first take is that, yes, you can drill down, but you're not reaching a broad audience. And sometimes you want that broad audience. Well, as far as we go, I mean, you had 3 headlines, right? Website, social media, and lead generation. I know Dee had mentioned you had a little trouble seeing your slides, but what I would point out is that with the exception of lead generation, a good marketing program can't do any of those things alone. I mean, you need a PR partner to refine your messaging, to test you, and to keep it true. And you need a cadence on social media just as much as you want a web developer for your website creation. I mean, I'll concede to you, Larry, that lead generation is critical to your business, and that is typically going to be led by your marketing team. But yes, it's PR's job to support that. So I know,
So you support marketing.
I think that in certain instances, yes, that is the case. Now, if I could turn the page, though, and where we are now on our slides, I hope mine are more legible than yours. I think marketing doesn't help your reputation. You can't buy a good reputation the way you can buy your message. So I think you were in the right place to begin with. So you can't simply spin one either. I'll also concede that your business needs to be genuinely good at what it does. But let's just assume we're all striving for excellence here. We all have great businesses. Everyone on this webinar has that. So that being the case, if we can move from there, PR is going to be your best friend in terms of reputation building and management. Larry likes to say there's no clear ROI on PR, right? But I would argue that the ROI on reputation management is huge and always outweighs the costs.
So what are they?
Doing it well. And well, since you brought up,
said it was clear.
Go ahead. I have to agree with one major point: marketing. You're tied most directly to your sales funnel. So you're going to have the more clear KPIs too, right?
Absolutely.
But that's not to say PR can't be measured. You just need to determine what metrics matter most to you from an early stage. And one of the most important metrics that if you're really new to this and want to know what your PR team should be measuring, I encourage you to measure your share of voice. That's how much of the industry conversation do you own of the conversations that you want to own? And as an example, of course, CPAL, let's say as an ATS provider, one of the things that they're very good at, whose goal is to be a leader in AI embedded in their technology. For example, you would want to stack yourself up against key competitors and see how much of the related conversations you own in that area versus how much your competitors own. And you don't want to move the goalposts all the time, or you're never going to capture the growth. That's what's tricky. Marketing, it's more direct. We got you this many eyeballs. We got you this many airs. This is how many views you had. In this case, we're trying.
And how much business you got.
Yeah, fair enough. And in this case, we're trying to measure, well, where are we in terms of leadership and that in the conversations that we want to own. The tricky part is that I always say you have to stay consistent, because you don't want to be measuring apples to oranges in your next quarter to see whether there's growth, because it's just not going to work. You're not going to know how much progress you've made. But the tricky part of this for PR is that sometimes you have to match the agility of.
Okay, PR, I'm going to cut you
from
off there.
AI technology within the ATS space to making VMS simple for recruiters, for example. That and that's not to point it at any one company. Just that if that were a shift you are making, then the conversation you measure is going to change. So there needs to be flexibility.
So PR, I'm going to cut you off there. We're going to allow marketing their rebuttal.
Sheila, can you hit the next slide for us?
You bet.
And hopefully my animation will, there we go. So the fact is, folks, PR doesn't have clear ROI. You heard it from him. He wouldn't admit it. He kind of danced around it. It sounded a little familiar to other things we might have heard in our past. Non-committal. PR does not have clear ROI. So let's talk about ROI for a second real quick. Sheila, take us to the next slide, please. One of the things I wanted to illustrate is the website. And part of the reason I wanted to go there is because of the fact that we're trying to drive every single interaction back to the website in order to create a transaction for sales and recruiting to be able to work with. We need something tangible. Sorry, Scott, are you familiar with that word, tangible?
Tangible, yes.
Yes, you might look it up. So with all of this, we are able to build clear ROI metrics across landing pages, across our social media outcomes, as you heard Scott attesting to, around lead generation, taking someone from that first contact to the meeting to requirements to submittal to interview all the way to making money. We build those reports that drive the results that or actually to announce the results of how we're doing. With us, there is great transparency to whether something is working or whether it is not, and giving us the adaptability and agility to move on the fly with those specific messages. And the fact is that it's not enough to create the lead generation campaigns. Lead generation campaigns will bring you revenue. They will bring you greater exposure across your target audience. And it will allow you to directly speak to your audience in the messages that you need. However, with doing all that, if you haven't set up the tracking to be able to measure all of this, then you'll be guessing at how you do. How many of you want to know how many positions you filled through your job boards? That's an effort that marketing works with you on in order to build out that if this campaign is going to be driving new candidates, then we want to be able to see where they came from. We want to know how many of them were deemed a true viable candidate. And then we want to know how many of those get submitted, interviewed, and hired, and track the ROI across it. What that tells you is for the dollars you spend, what you get in return. I'm pretty sure that, Scott, are you familiar with the term return?
Return. Yeah.
Which on that note, I'll return to you to kind of bring us up to speed on what you'd like to share.
Well, I mean, you focused on ROI. I feel I already more or less answered this, but I do want to point back to the fact that you had 3 headlines: the website, social media, and lead generation, right? And I would agree, as I already conceded, that in terms of lead generation, if you're looking for a list of hot leads, medium leads, cold leads, hey, you can buy them from a million different firms out there who data warehouses. But if you're looking for social media, you want to have genuine conversations. And by that, we're talking authenticity. And I'll be bringing us back to that point later in the conversation. But I do think that there is a place for paid campaigns in social media. That said, that alone is not going to build an authentic enough channel for you. You do want a PR team who's going to make those conversations real. Because if you're just buying followers, and if you're just paying for your message to be heard by more of those followers, you don't know how much of it is imaginary unless you're getting true engagements, which
I think I need to ask for a fact check here.
Gentlemen, let's be
here we go. Here comes
our finish.
back to you, Larry.
The fact is with the different things that you see coming out of Scott's mouth, just please remember, we're managing your Glassdoor reputation. We're managing your social media reputation, not just paid advertising campaigns, but really trying to create those authentic conversations. PR is working behind the scenes a little bit more, but I'm just going to say, we're out in front dealing with customers and clients and trying to make sure that candidates and consultants all understand the value that our firms bring. How are you involved in that?
In terms of Glassdoor, for example?
Reputation management.
In terms of reputation management, so let's go back to it. PR, where's our slide? PR is tied directly to your reputation. So marketing, again, yes, Glassdoor, I understand. You can drive surveys internally and ensure that you're treating employees right and get some good Glassdoor reviews. And there is honestly value in that. However, you also need public relations, because if you just have those, then you're hoping that people will stumble across your Glassdoor reviews to say, gee, I want to work there, right? If you don't have PR out there saying, wow, we just rated at whatever it is in whatever survey that you wanted to take, nobody's going to hear it. If a tree falls in the forest and no one's there to hear it, does it make a noise?
Well, we heard a minute ago the whole presentation part that you were delivering. We didn't get to hear you, so it clearly makes a noise because you just can't stop. So PR,
there we go.
PR is not direct in speech. They have to dance around things. In marketing, we're able to look to you. Take us to the next slide, please. We're able to not just focus on your audience, but focus on the client need. We're able to actually demonstrate what you're able to bring to a client in order to get that business and in order for them to feel comfortable with giving you that business. Right now, we're seeing a very big shift in the marketplace from the general practitioner to the niche provider. It's been going on for several years, but it's now reached pretty mass proportions in the sense that the different VMSs, the different MSPs, even with direct clients, we're seeing the fact that they're wanting to turn to experts about specific space. And so with marketing, we can actually detail out our practice in a given area, whether it's AI, machine learning, whether it's business intelligence, you name it. But the key here is to be able to express to the client why they need you and what you bring to the table to solve their problems. With PR, they have to dance around it. They can't say what they mean, mainly because of the fact that if they did, they would be stuck because the media isn't going to publish what they want to say. So, from my perspective, if you're wanting to show someone that you understand their pain points, if you're trying to understand how to share your expertise and you want to share what firm is the right firm to work with, then the only things that you really have to look at is how am I going to get these messages out and be direct in your speech. A call to action that was written by PR, first of all, is a page long. No one's going to read it. Calls to action, are you ready to do business with us today? Because we want to do business with you. Click here. That We're talking about real direct speech and being able to bring the needs of the client to you in order to answer your question. You just need to understand your client's needs and how to provide the service that they're looking for and demonstrate your superior service, and that we're going to get them the best people right away. We want to bring it from those generic messages down to as specific as we can so that we're direct in our speech. And with that, back to you, Scott.
We're going to let PR
Well,
use the rebuttal.
I'm going to argue, of course, the exact opposite. I'm going to say that is fake news, most of what you just said.
You misspelled fake on your sign, by the way.
Did I really?
No, gentlemen.
Andy's gullible.
Carry on.
That's how tricky marketing is. They're not authentic. They don't tell you the truth when they speak. And we, as consumers of that marketing material, understand and know that. And that's where authenticity comes into play. So you say that we can't be direct in speech. We've talked about this together. And, Larry at times can be the blunt instrument of we're having our audience. And PR, I have to be the more finessed voice. However, I would say that at times it's really the opposite, because there are times where I want to have authentic conversations with key influencers within the industry, but I have to blurt out a whole paragraph on marketing before I get to the nuts and soup of the transaction, if you will, because for us, information is all that we have to go by. We don't have cash. Cash is a much easier transaction. So yes, marketing's direct in speech. I will give you that, but because it can afford to be. You buy and pay for a channel, and you get to say what you want. But and okay, it has to be good to work. I get that, Larry. So I don't want to tear you down too far, because I do understand that you're very good at what you did. But your audience is generally going to know it's a bought and paid for message. And that level of messaging is equaled by the discipline required to actually engage an audience in a more authentic manner. Where, what do I mean by authentic? I'm not suggesting marketing can't have some authenticity behind it, as I've said.
I thought you said that was fake news.
But wasn't that nice of me to say that there might be a little authenticity behind you, Larry? But what I'm suggesting is that public relations must not only be authentic, it has to be tested in order to work. I can't just throw it out there and say, oh, yeah, there you go. As long as you pay that retainer, it's going to work. I can't do that. In other words, if it's not authentic, it's not going to fly. So the audience you engage understands that while you may have an agenda, a serious influencer, such as a reporter, blogger, editor, evaluates that message and determines whether or not it has value before it gets out there. So, yeah, it is an extra hoop to jump through. It's an extra hurdle to jump. But that means you're getting the value of an outsider's influencer's credibility added to your own. And that's something you can't simply buy. That's why we call your coverage earned media. Your website and blog, you might call your owned media or owned channels, and your advertising is your bought or paid media. But earned carries the greatest value. This is where thought leadership comes in, and it's where you put your stake in the ground and your flag, and you say, this is the conversation I want to own and lead, and I'm going to bring a real perspective to my audience and root it in authority and authenticity, and they're going to understand that I can lead them to the promised land, whatever that is. And quite honestly, usually the marketing team is going to define where the promised land is. So I have to come back and be just a little bit real in that way. But you just can't buy thought leadership. You have to earn it. Once it's earned, it can amplify your product and platform messaging like nothing else. So it's really an important tool for a marketing team to use.
All right, marketing.
Interesting. So authenticity. Let me just rebut real quick. In everything that we create, we have to make sure there's authenticity, as Scott was mentioning. The fact is, if you try and purport to be someone that you're not, it will be discovered very quickly. It will backfire in your face. So whether we're talking PR or marketing, the authenticity of your message needs to be spot on with what you bring to the table, not a made-up belief of what you hope to be, unless you're actually working to it. So I'll put a little spin there. PR does not focus on clarity.
Did you have a PR professional work on that spin for you, Larry?
Well, I was going to ask you to do it, but I was trying to find a PR person.
Gentlemen.
So, PR does not focus on clarity and consistency of message. So let's go ahead and see what we mean by that. So when we're going through these different messages, we're trying to determine what is the key message for this particular audience. What is it that about your firm that will stand out to them? I wanted to show you, some social media examples, because very simply is when we're talking about a variety of different efforts that we're doing, we're able to be very, very specific and drive that audience to our desired goals. Is your firm driven by client satisfaction? Is your firm attracting the very best talent? We need to pull out those key messages so that we can create the differentiation about what you bring to the table. Don't be satisfied with your messaging being generic or just being what everyone else has. One of the things I love to say on this, it just makes it very clear for everybody. Differentiation is about being different, not saying the same as everybody else. So do you have that dedicated subject matter expert within key functions that you could bring to the table? Or are you a diverse supplier? There are so many different key messages about your business that you can bring to the table and make sure that your message is heard, understood, and that it's clear and consistent across all of the different channels that you would use, whether it's web, digital advertising, across direct marketing and more. The fact is, whatever you're going after, you want to make sure that you're clear and consistent. Scott, I don't know if you bring that. Do you?
Well, hopefully we work in coordination in that way in an ideal world. However, sometimes marketing can make things a little bit cloudy by focusing on too many value adds that the product brings, for example. So the reason I say that is because if we went back, I won't go back. When I say marketing is not leadership, Larry, understand, I know you're a leader in marketing. However, so don't get.
Oh, well, then what do you mean?
What I mean by that is that it's not industry leadership. Marketing is a critical tool. PR is part of that you need for an external communications program and sometimes internal. But leadership is really thought leadership. This is where I'm heading with it, which a couple slides ago we talked a little bit about it. I'm going to get into this one, but public relations is credible in its speech. You say it's not direct. The finesse approach of PR enables the authenticity that escapes straight marketing teams. The credibility the good PR program establishes provides a platform for your organization's leaders, and that creates amplification. PR, as I said earlier, builds on the credibility of others, and it adds the credibility of outside influencers to your own. And thought leadership does begin with HR. Well, so that said, when we started, and we say that PR is not, that marketing is not leadership. We don't mean to say that they're not leaders within your organization. I'm talking really about industry. So I asked Larry at the beginning in that video that you may have seen, and it's a thing of beauty. I encourage you to watch it if you tuned in late. I said, do you even lift, bro? I wasn't talking about weights. I was talking about elevating clients. I want to return to that idea of leadership in your communications program because I think it's one of the most important things you can do for your business. And we have a couple of examples here of much larger organizations using it that I've been involved with. But elevating your message above industry jargon and product discussion is really important if you want to be heard. I mean, no one cares that you say we have the first, best, or only solution. Yes, I understand those are key marketing differentiators that you need to have in your arsenal. But guess what? Everyone says they have the FBO. It would be more noteworthy if you said you weren't the first, best, or only. But of course, that won't win you marketing points. So you're not going to do that. But what can you say beyond that that's going to elevate you? So here are two simple examples that I think illustrate the point. I worked with these clients myself. So first was Raytheon, a Fortune 100 company. They're a leader in aerospace and defense. And they're mainly known, for those that do know them, as a missile maker. Their innovation is it's way beyond that. I won't get into what they do, but their big products are the Patriot missile and the SM-3 missile. Those are their bread and butter. Yes, they do. They do online. I mean, they've invented email. They deal in metaphysics. I mean, it's unbelievable the things that they do. But that's not what people know them by. And so, in their headquarters in Massachusetts, there were political problems for them. People would protest outside. So, what are we going to do to say, hey, we're not just about war and destruction? We created a corporate social responsibility program for them that focused on STEM education. And how did it relate to them? I mean, you can't just go out there and say, I'm going to do this because, hey, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Instead, I'm going to focus on doing good in society. You have to relate it back to your organization. And in Raytheon's case, it did relate because they were one of the largest employers of engineers, and they know there's a shortage of engineers. So that's where STEM education comes in. So we partnered with others in the education field and created the Raytheon Math Counts competition, which was something that we lifted to the point where it was similar to the Scripps National Spelling Bee. I mean, you don't expect a defense contractor to be on Kelly and Ryan, but
PR, I'm going to have to ask you to pause real quick. PR, time out.
Good. Okay. I won't bore you then with the other story, but let's be honest, with no product messaging, there's no conversation. So I know we need to move on to consolidated teams.
Yep.
Am I right?
Larry? We have about 5 minutes left here. So we're going to ask our panelists to give
Sheila, can you advance the slide?
I can advance the slide. So we're going to ask our panelists to give 5 minutes, and then we're going to go over the poll questions.
Sheila, can you advance? There we go. So, folks, once again, technical problems aside, we are trying to present to you a concept where PR and marketing actually work hand in hand across a great deal of different projects and different ways in which to bring business. Each of them has a different value point. You're looking for credibility. You're looking to get your name out nationally for your good accomplishments or for new things that you've created. And I would never argue that that's not a PR. You want a speaking opportunity? Absolutely PR. Marketing and PR work so hand in hand commonly that as we go through all of these different projects, we're trying to make sure that our marketing message stays in alignment with PR because of the fact that it all brings it all together. Scott and I came up with this idea of making this a adversarial thing, and the reality is that other than picking on each other, we're really not all that adversarial. Whenever I'm working with with PR, I'm trying to make sure that they understand what our goals and objectives are. They're trying to educate me on a variety of different things in order to make sure that we all end up in that same direction. Scott, anything you can add to that?
I agree. I mean, I agree because a lot of the messaging starts with you, and my job is to keep you honest and say, well, that won't fly because, I know that sounds maybe a little bit self-flattering.
I think I was being nice.
I think you were. But if you'll indulge me a little further, I will say marketing does much, if not most, of the heavy lifting of your communications program for messaging development. I do think PR needs to be in the room because just like, that heavy lifting, it might be the workout and the discipline of your message. PR is going to bring you the unlikely. So I couldn't get too far into the examples that I showed, but it's a chance to speak beyond your product messaging and to really put you as a leader of industry. And I feel you want your leadership team to be seen as that because they're going to be a lot more receptive to your marketing team's messages if they see you as that leader. So you need jabs, you need uppercuts, and you need weightlifting, and you need knockout punches too if you're going to beat your opponent. And PR and marketing really have to share the same corner of the ring if they want to win the belt. And I feel that Larry and I generally do that, and it was a lot of fun just taking shots at each other today for fun, just to make a few, hopefully, salient points that you can all bring to your practices and your organizations, I hope.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
With that, I think we ought to open it up to some questions. And for anybody that knows the Rocky reference, two starch advocates came together. So needless to say, I prefer to be Apollo, though.
I'll take it. I'll be Rocky. I mean, he did the title credit, right?
Okay. Gentlemen, thank
you. Absolutely. What questions can we field for everybody?
Larry, can you hear me? Scott, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, can Larry hear me? I don't think so.
Larry, do you hear me?
I do.
Okay, Larry hears me, but not Sheila apparently. So Sheila, if you throw the question out, I can field it best I can and share that question with Larry.
That would be great.
Great. So the first thing we're going to do is just share our polling data. So our audience has voted as to who our winners were. And I want to say, so we had 3 questions. A, which generates more leads for your company? B, after the discussion, who do you think won? And C, what has proved more effective for long-term generating ROI? So I'm excited to announce for our first question, which generates more leads for your company? The winner far and away is marketing. So Scott, do you want to announce that to Larry?
No
Larry,
questions?
Marketing wins the first question. That was lead generation, correct, Sheila?
Lead generation, marketing takes the day. Okay. Our second question, which has proved more effective for generating ROI long term? Okay. Ready? So long-term generation of ROI, and the winner is again marketing. Award it to the marketing corner.
Long-term generation ROI, marketing takes the lead again. Larry, you're cleaning up right now.
Okay. And
I wish I could even hear.
Our final question.
He looks very pleased with himself.
After the discussion, who do we think won the debate? This is the big one, folks. And in this case, the winner is PR. It goes to the PR corner.
Thank you. From
your reaction, I'm not happy.
Overall debate.
Yes, PR won the overall debate, Larry. Although you may have won on ROI. So
well, I think when you
won on ROI. So
well, I think when you sabotaged my speaker and all that, I certainly worked in your favor.
Luckily, see, sometimes you have to play dirty, folks. Even if it means sabotaging the opponent's technology.
Okay. Now, gentlemen, we only have 2 minutes left. I'm afraid we don't have time to take any questions, but I want to thank both of you so much for your time today, for giving us a lively debate. To all of our panelists, thank you. To all of our attendees, thank you so much. We're so glad you tuned in.